what controllers want, any form of a controller, that understand that this is how conscience is born through a balanced brain, what they want is to keep people in schism, in a mental schism. And this is also a spiritual schism. It's a schism with the heart. It's a mental, emotional, psychological, spiritual schism. And a physical one, because the two hemispheres of the brain aren't operating together as they should. So it's a schism on all levels. It's polarity on all levels. This is slide number 4. I simply referred to it here as the mental schism, but again, we need to understand it's mental, psychological, physical, emotional, and spiritual. But for simplistic purposes on a slide, I wrote the mental schism because it largely does relate to the brain. As the brain goes, the whole being goes. And this is why there's such an attack on us through food, through chemicals in the food, chemicals in the water, chemicals in the air. They want to destabilize the brain because that's how they keep their control system going. Healthy people with a healthy brain aren't going to be controlled because both parts of the brain, the part of the brain that governs compassion and the part of the brain that deals with action, right action, and self-defense are going to be working together. So you're going to have a moral person that's willing to take action even up to and necessary of defensive use of force, which is what we're going to talk about later in this presentation. So, mind control works by continuously dividing these two parts of the brain, all the qualities that are active in these two parts of the brain, trying to keep them walled off and separate from each other and not coming together as one. So you want to keep either or both parts of the brain in a chronic imbalanced state. So when the left side of the brain is chronically overused and we're not using any of the functions of the right side of the brain, chronic left brain imbalance, which is continuously engaging in intellect-only tasks and activities and functions, okay, it will lead to certain conditions. And before I get into that, I just want to say true intelligence is born from uniting these two hemispheres, because we have the intellect, which is the intelle part of intelligence, and then Gence comes from genere in Latin, meaning to create. That's the creative side of the brain. So when people think, oh, scientists and doctors and lawyers are so intelligent, no, they're intellectual maybe. They can process large amounts of data and so-called facts and figures and things like that. They could do math well, verbal arguments and things like that, but they're not really intelligent. They don't have true intelligence. It comes from intellect and gens, the creative aspect of the mind, the artistic, the nurturing, the compassionate side of the brain, which many of those people do not have developed, and therefore they don't really know the difference between right and wrong. When we put them together, that's when we develop true intelligence. So a dominator, a controller, one who is at the helm of the control system, of course, wants a polarization effect. They want people imbalanced toward one brain hemisphere or another. I call this polarization dialectics. Okay? You're keeping things apart. You're creating that arch structure that is very hard to break down, because you have some people here who are on the left side dominant and they're becoming like controllers, and then you have the other side that is right side dominant and they're exercising slave-think. They're going into slave-think, thinking that this control system can never be brought down, or we deserve this, etc. And just thinking like a slave who believes that he's the rightful property of the master would think. So that's how the perpetuation of the control system works. You keep one aspect of the population in left brain imbalance, and they become control freaks and secondary psychopaths, and then you can keep the other side in right brain imbalance. So let's talk about what these states of imbalance look like. The intellect, the masculine side of the brain, the left brain hemisphere, if it's continuously engaged and the right side of the brain is not engaged, when you're in chronic left-brained imbalance, this will lead to things like rigid skepticism. Okay, not real science, but just out of control rigid skepticism that becomes like a religion. Okay, you're not willing to look at the evidence even. You actually have a belief system because this is the protocol. This fits in with what the scientific community is saying is possible, even if there's evidence to the contrary. So rigid skepticism. Scientism. Again, this is science as a religion. I like Rupert Sheldrake's talk about this and the book that he's written about science acting as a religion in the modern day. It's no different for all the people who worship science, And again, I realize this information pisses off everybody because most people are in one of these states of brain imbalance or another. The people who worship science and think it's the be-all, end-all, they're in a form of left-brain imbalance. The people who, are all super religious and think that their religion is the totality of the truth, they're in right-brain imbalance. This has nothing to do with science or religion. This has to do with truth about what is and what is going on within us and around us. And that can be known. And that's the knowledge that's worth pursuing. That's the knowledge that is most worth pursuing. Knowledge of self and knowledge of what is taking place in the realm in which the self operates. If we don't know that, we don't know anything. All other pursuits of knowledge are secondary to that. Not to say that they're not worth pursuing at all. I'm saying knowledge of self and the universe are worth pursuing first. And the knowledge of self has to come first. And understanding the brain and how it operates, the general ways that it operates, you can get lost in the details and the specifics because there's so much about the brain we do know and don't know, more about it that we don't know. And I'm going to get into this in future shows. I promise people I'll be getting into the origins of humanity, the origins of the control system, the origins of evil, the origins of psychopathy, and, telling that horror story. And a lot of people aren't going to like that. And it's going to maybe even shut some people down. But I've prepared the way with all these 140 some odd podcasts, and now it's time to start speculating a bit about what may have led to the cause of this human condition that we're in. This sick condition. Because until you can acknowledge the condition, many people are not even ready to hear what the causal factors may have been. Because of what it's going to force us to reevaluate our entire belief system about what happened here in the ancient past. And what has traumatized us to the extent that we are traumatized that we can't seem to get out of this condition. We have to bring that trauma to the surface, and that has to be done by looking without fear into what may very well have occurred here. So back to the slides. These polarization dialectics or mind control techniques work by keeping people in one form of brain imbalance or another. So continuing with what the intellect out of control leads to, rigid skepticism, scientism, science as a religion, atheism. And again, what I'm talking about here is just thinking that man is the highest power in creation. If you want to really boil it down, that's all atheism is. It's a belief system that there's nothing other than man. That we're the best and brightest, we're the highest source of intelligence in all of creation. And atheists don't believe in natural law. And there's nothing to believe in natural law. They reject that notion that there is an intelligent guiding force that not only created the universe, but is actually governing the decisions that we're being given the result of the free will choices that we make by this dynamic, governing, intelligent, creative force. They don't want to accept that. Because man can just do whatever he wants unchallenged. And right and wrong are just constructs of man's mind. And it's sick. It's sick thinking. It's totally left brain imbalance. Someone who thinks like that is ill. They may not know that they're ill, but they're ill. There's a force that sets the galaxies in motion. There's a force that sets the planets and the stars in motion. That force is the same force that ultimately governs the consequences of behavior. That people think they're separate from those laws? That there's laws governing everything that's operating in creation except them? Everything else is governed by law, except man. Man can make up whatever he wants, whether it's right or wrong. Do it, there's no consequences. Now, good luck with that. And this is what many atheists think. I'm not telling you to go believe in some religious God. What I consider as the creative force is something so infinitely more complex and majestic and intelligent and creative and powerful than anything that any religion has ever spoken of. That concept that I hold in my mind, that what religions have brought it down into is an insult to that force. And make no mistake about it, no man or group of men is it. We may be a tiny, infinitesimally tiny part of it. That's not to say that we're not an important part of it, but, basically what atheists are claiming is that man is the authority. That there's no higher power that's governing what we're doing here. Well, I think that's extreme short-sightedness, it's arrogance, it's ego run unchecked, which is what the left brain is all about. And when we engage in these chronically left-brained dominant ideologies that have no bearing in truth, it leads to authoritarianism. Because if there's no higher power than man, then hey, man can do whatever he wants. We can get to make up morality. That's a construct of man that doesn't exist in nature, That's what most people think. You just do that experiment. Go ask people, is there such a thing as objective right and wrong that exists in nature? Or just ask them, they don't even understand what the word objective means. Just say, if all humans suddenly disappeared from existence, there was no Earth, let's say. The Earth just vanished along with everybody on it. And there was nothing where the third planet from our sun in our solar system was in a flash, in an instant. Would right and wrong still exist? Most people will tell you no, that it's dependent on man. They actually believe that. And this concept of moral relativism is what has led to the current police state. And this is what people have to understand. They need to understand it. If they want to get out of the police state. For some reason, people seem to love being kept pets. They want a police state. That's the most amazing thing about this whole thing, is that people actually want to be free. Well, don't want to be free. They actually want to be enslaved. Well, guess what? That's all well and great. But please take that somewhere else. Because there are people here that do want to be free, and you have no right. You have no right in your ignorance to be allowing this police state to come on unchecked, and therefore putting people that don't want to be in that cage with you in there with you. Make no mistake, you have no such right. You have no such right. People who think, people have the right to think anything they want, including that slavery is okay. Absolutely wrong. You have a right to think anything you want as long as you're not advocating that other people have violence done to them and be held in slavery. Once your thoughts go there, you have no right to think that. And I'll tell you what, there are people who will openly come out and admit, I don't care if there's slavery. I'll do nothing. Members of my own family admit this. And seem to be proud of it, wearing it like a badge of honor. See the police state coming on and say, I don't care. And these people have children. They have grandchildren. And people don't think people are sick, that this is an illness. That this is an illness born of total imbalance of the brain and the heart. We need to understand it's an illness. So that's what happens if the left side of the brain is in balance. Let's move to the right side of the brain. Okay? The feminine side of the brain, the intuitive part of the brain, the creative part. What happens when it becomes chronically dominant? Chronically imbalanced. We're constantly using those aspects of the brain, but we're not exercising the left brain. We're not thinking logically. We're not looking into truth discovery methods. of which the scientific method is perfectly a valid one. We want to just let other people do whatever they want, never challenge them. Never openly say, hey, what you're doing is wrong. You have no right to do this. Not standing up for ourselves, not standing up for our rights. Believing in anything. Any new age mumbo jumbo that comes down the pike, I believe it and I start trying to practice it. This is all forms of right brain imbalance. So this state of right-brained hemispherical imbalance can lead to total naivete. You're not streetwise. Okay? Being very naive like a child. And that's what the whole nanny state control system wants. They want people who think like a child and treat other people like children. When the left brain's dominant, it causes people to become like masters, thinking that they're somebody's parental figure. When the right brain's imbalanced, it causes people to act like children, thinking that they're someone's property or ward. Blind belief can be brought on by chronic right hemispherical imbalance. People will believe anything. Religious extremism. The whole religious worldview is largely born in the right brain. And, part of this is thinking that God is controlling everything and there's no such thing as free will. I had somebody tell me there's no such thing as free will, that we don't have free will. I said, you're absolutely wrong. We have free will. We just don't have free will without consequence. You have to exercise free will, choose, make a choice, and then act. And if you chose the right action, then the consequence will not be suffering. If you chose the wrong action because you didn't know the difference between right and wrong, the consequence will be suffering. That's how natural law works. Natural law is the deterministic component of creation. Like gravity, it's determined. It's operating. You're not going to stop it from operating. You're bound by it. Doesn't matter whether you believe it or not. Doesn't matter whether you know about it or not. It's very cold and impersonal. Natural law doesn't care about you. People want to think that the boundary conditions of this universe are so loving and caring. They're not. They're impersonal forces that the Creator set into motion and then doesn't interfere with, because they're the perfect boundary conditions for the acceleration of our evolutionary development. Once we recognize that they exist and that we are bound by them. They're not prison conditions. They are there to help and guide us. The boundary conditions called natural law that are existent in the universe. Though that's the deterministic aspect of creation. This war between determinism and randomness is also dialectics. Both are present. Again, I talked about this on day one or the second show. The deterministic component of creation is natural law. The randomness aspect of creation is free will, which we are gifted with. Because the Creator does not interfere with our choices. We have free will to act how we will. But it is governed by the deterministic aspect of creation called natural law, which is the governing dynamic of behavior. Again, the people who are so naive don't think that there's free will, and they don't think that there's natural law. As if everything else in creation is going to have governing principles to set it into motion and guide it, except human behavior. That's completely, not affected by law. That's exempt. So this religious extremism as part of right hemispherical imbalance, comes largely from this determinism that people believe in. That, God controls every aspect of creation, including free will, and free will is an illusion. No, free will is not an illusion. People who want to think that want to give away personal responsibility to choose right action over wrong action. And therefore they want to say, I don't have free will. You have it, just like you have an arm, a heart, a head, whatever. It's yours. You can't pull your heart out of your body and still live. It's yours forever. You can't take your brain out of your head and still live. So you can't give away your personal responsibility. You can't take that away from yourself. It's an illusion to think that you can. It's yours and you're stuck with it. Get over it. Grow up. And this is the problem. That people actually believe these things. They actually believe that there's no free will or that there's no natural law. The people in super left brain imbalance don't believe that there's any such thing as natural law. The people in super right brain imbalance don't believe there's any such thing as free will. And these things play off against each other. You have people like Stephen Hawking in such left brain imbalance thinking that he's intelligent. He doesn't have a drop of intelligence. Not a drop. Stephen Hawking is a super intellectual. Maybe far beyond anybody else in the world. But he has not a lick of common sense or real intelligence. Not a lick. And I'd tell that to Stephen Hawking's face. The book he just wrote, talking about in the very first chapter that there's no such thing as free will. That free will is dead like God is dead. I mean, you got to be joking. And people look up to this guy and think he's intelligent, that he's smart. Not a drop of intelligence. You got no common sense there, Stevie boy. None. I don't care how intellectual you are. That's not what intelligence is. You don't understand how it works and you think you do. Because you are a worshiper at the altar of scientism and the primacy of matter. Hey, we'll look deeper into the core of the atom, the nucleus of the atom, and we'll find all the secrets of the universe. Good luck with that, Steve. Enjoy what you get. Because you're not looking into the place that's the only place you're ever going to find that answer, and that's the human soul. So, continuing with what right brain imbalance is it leads to slave-think. When you're in this state of mind, naive, like a child, believing anything, okay, you are apt to accept all kinds of erroneous claims by dominators and controllers. And therefore you will go into the state where you don't exercise your free will, where you don't exercise your rights, and you just accept. And this is key to this whole presentation, is understanding this part of the brain, the imbalance generated by the right brain. When you're chronically in the right brain and never are engaging left brain functions, you'll never stand up for yourself. You will accept slavery. And this is what the New Age is all about, which is why I say I find the New Age movement infinitely more dangerous than Satanism. When people are reeled in by LaVeyan Satanism or Satanism a la the Temple of Set and other schools of ideology such as that, it's dangerous. It's a very dangerous ideology. But let me tell you something. At least Satanists don't think that they're slaves. They want to be the masters. You know? Not that I'm saying that's right either. But I'm telling you, if everybody thought like that we're all masters and we're all kings and I don't want my rights trounced on, the world might get a little bit ugly, but it wouldn't be as bad as having the super form of right brain imbalance when you won't stand up for your rights or even think you have any. You know, I'll take people who believe in Satanism in the modern day, the mini-me version of Satanism, as I call it, not the super elites, you know, Satanism and Luciferianism. I'm talking about people who buy into the interface at the ground level, at the level of the public, that is called Satanism. The recruitment system. I'll take those people any day over the New Age movement. And what the New Age movement doesn't understand is their religion is put into effect at a higher level by the Luciferians that are ultimately controlling the whole planet. They're the ones who are putting these erroneous notions about the laws of attraction and natural law and spirituality into the world, so that real spirituality will never actually be fostered. And therefore their power structure will never be challenged because they're holding people in right brain imbalance by propagating this new religion, this quote-unquote new religion. There's nothing new about it at all. It's a eons-long strategy. And they've been doing it for thousands and thousands of years. Putting people in the right brain imbalance through religion. And this is just the New World religion. That's it. The old religions aren't working anymore. They need to come up with something new. That's all the New Age movement is. Hence, quote-unquote new. Because it's just another religion. And religion means to buy or to tie up, tie out of the way, hold back, thwart from forward progress. We'll get into that in a moment. Let's move on to the next slide. When these two parts of the brain come together, that's what this slide was about, that's when the true all-seeing eye is ignited. The blazing star, the all-seeing eye, the true spark of the divine within us. That's born of true intelligence and conscience. The heart uniting with the mind. The mind, intelligence, the heart, conscience. This is bringing all of these different aspects of the human together as whole, as a whole. We're not divided anymore. Becoming a true individual means you're whole, individuated, non-divided, not separate. You become one with yourself, with the higher aspect of the self. And only when we do that are we truly activating the heart as well. So I don't want people to think this is just about the brain either. This is about activating care within yourself. What you care about, what you pay attention to. And that does feed into the law of attraction. Not the way a lot of people think it does, though.